My little sister uninvited me from her wedding because I didn't fit her mother-in-law's aesthetic. Heartbroken, I booked a luxury solo trip. But when their budget wedding fell apart, they realized I was the only one who could fix it, so I turned off my phone. Before we begin today's story, we have an urgent announcement. Due to technical issues, this channel is shutting down. But don't worry, the stories continue. Please subscribe to our new channel, Daily Drip Stories. You can find the link in the video description, the pinned comment, and the collaboration tag on this video. Make sure to switch over now so you don't miss out. Thank you for your support. Now back to the story. I was sitting in my car, parked in the driveway of my childhood home, staring at the rain hitting the windshield. It wasn't a storm, just that miserable gray drizzle that seems to seep into your bones. The engine was off, but I hadn't moved to open the door yet. My phone was buzzing in my hand, a relentless vibration that felt like a physical warning. I had just come from a 70-hour work week. As a crisis management specialist for high-stakes corporate events, my life was a perpetual state of adrenaline and damage control. I had spent the last 3 days sleeping in a hotel ballroom, ensuring that a tech merger announcement didn't turn into a PR disaster when the keynote speaker got food poisoning an hour before stage time. I was exhausted. My eyes felt like they were filled with sand, and my lower back was throbbing. But I was here because Caroline, my little sister, had sent me a text message that simply said, "We need to talk. Come over, please." Please was a rare word in Caroline's vocabulary. Usually, it was "I need" or "Can you just?" I took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of stale coffee and old leather, and finally stepped out into the rain. I didn't bother with an umbrella. I just wanted to get inside, hear whatever crisis she had manufactured this time, probably an issue with the florist or a panic attack about the shade of the napkins, fix it, and then go home to sleep for 12 hours. When I walked into the living room, the atmosphere was suffocating. It wasn't the frantic energy of wedding planning I was used to. It was heavy, silent. My father, Roman, was sitting in his armchair, staring intently at the television, though the volume was muted. He didn't look up when I entered. That was my first clue. Roman was a man who avoided conflict the way a cat avoids water. If he was pretending to be invisible, something terrible was happening. Caroline was sitting on the sofa, her knees pulled up to her chest. She looked small, younger than her 23 years. She wasn't crying, which scared me more than if she had been hysterical. She was picking at a loose thread on the cushion, refusing to meet my eyes. "Hey," I said, my voice rasping slightly from days of shouting instructions over headsets. I dropped my bag on the floor and walked over, sitting on the coffee table so I was facing her. "I'm here. What's wrong? Did the venue cancel? Did Robert get cold feet?" Caroline flinched at Robert's name. She took a shaky breath and finally looked at me. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but there was a hardness in them I hadn't seen before. A defensive wall going up. "Nothing is canceled," she whispered. "The wedding is fine. It's perfect, actually. Diane found a new vendor for the lighting." "Okay," I said slowly, trying to read the room. "That's good, right? So why the emergency text? Why does Dad look like he's trying to telepathically communicate with the weatherman?" Roman shifted in his chair, but stayed silent. "Alice," Caroline said, her voice trembling. She uncurled her legs and sat up straight, bracing herself. "Diane and I were going over the guest list again, with the venue changes, and the specific vision Diane has for the photography." My stomach tightened. Diane, Robert's mother, the woman who treated waiters like furniture and furniture like religious artifacts. "Okay, I know you had to cut some of the distant cousins. We talked about this." "It's not the cousins," Caroline said. She looked at her hands. "It's the bridal party and the head table." "Did you kick Sarah out?" I asked, confused. "I told you she was going to be flaky." "No," Caroline said. She swallowed hard. "Alice, look, this is really hard for me, but Diane feels and Robert agrees that the aesthetic of the wedding needs to be very specific. It's going to be in vogue potentially." Diane pulled some strings. "That's great, Care," I said, though my patience was fraying. "Get to the point." "You can't be the maid of honor," she blurted out. The silence that followed was so loud it rang in my ears. I blinked, trying to process the words. I had bought the dress. I had planned the bachelorette party. I had put down the deposit for the shower with my own money. "Okay," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "I'm disappointed." "Obviously, but if you want Sarah to do it." "You can't be in the wedding party," she interrupted, her voice rising in pitch. "And Alice, you can't be at the ceremony." I froze. The world seemed to tilt slightly to the left. "I'm sorry, I think I misheard you. Did you just say I can't be at the ceremony?" "It's the photos," she said, rushing the words out now, like she wanted to vomit them up and be done with it. "Diane says the theme is ethereal youth. It's very specific. Everyone in the photos needs to fit a certain look, a certain age demographic. And your style, your vibe, it's just very corporate. It's too serious. It clashes with the whimsy." I stared at her. "You're uninviting me because I'm 32 and have a job." "It's not just that," she cried, looking to Roman for help, but he remained steadfastly interested in the muted commercial. "It's the energy, Alice. You're always so managing. You take over. Diane says you make people nervous. She says you'll spend the whole time critiquing the logistics and you won't look happy in the background shots, and it will ruin the visual cohesion." I stood up. I couldn't sit anymore. The exhaustion I had felt 5 minutes ago was gone, replaced by a cold, sharp shock. "I'm your sister," I said. "I practically raised you when Mom died. I paid for your braces. I paid for your first car." "I know," Caroline shouted, tears finally spilling over. "And I love you, but this is my day. For once, it's not about you fixing things or paying for things. It's about me. And if Diane says it's vital for the magazine feature, then I have to do it. This wedding is going to launch Robert's career, Alice. You have to understand." She reached into her pocket and pulled out an envelope. "Diane said, to show there are no hard feelings, we want to send you on a trip during the wedding week, so you aren't just sitting at home." She held out the envelope. I looked at it. It was a thick, cream-colored envelope with Diane's monogram on it. I looked at my sister. I looked at my father, who finally turned his head, his face a mask of shame and cowardice. "Dad," I asked, "you're okay with this?" Roman cleared his throat. "Alice, honey, you know how Diane is. She's paying for the venue. We can't really argue with her. It's just one day. You can see the photos after." "The photos," I repeated. "The ones I'm not allowed to be in because I'm too old and corporate." I didn't take the envelope. I just nodded, a slow, mechanical movement. The betrayal was physically painful, a sharp ache in the center of my chest that made it hard to breathe. It wasn't just that I was excluded. It was that I was disposable. I was useful when things needed to be paid for or fixed, but when it came to the image of their perfect life, I was a flaw to be photoshopped out. "Keep the envelope," I said, my voice sounding like it belonged to a stranger. "I don't need Diane's charity." "Alice, please," Caroline sobbed. "Don't be like this. This is exactly why Diane said it wouldn't work. You're making a scene." I turned and walked to the door. I opened it, letting the cold, damp air hit my face. I looked back at them one last time, my sister, desperate for the approval of a woman who hated her, and my father, too weak to protect his own child. "I'm not making a scene, Caroline," I said quietly. "I'm leaving. Have a beautiful wedding." The betrayal was worse than the diagnosis itself. The drive back to my apartment was a blur. I don't remember the traffic lights or the turns. I only remember the feeling of my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. When I got inside my apartment, the silence was different than the one at my father's house. This was my sanctuary. It was clean, organized, and paid for by the very corporate career that apparently made me an eyesore. I went straight to the bathroom and vomited. It was a physical purge of the shock and humiliation. When I washed my face, I looked at myself in the mirror. 32. I had dark circles under my eyes, yes. I had a few gray hairs I usually dyed, yes. But I looked like a woman who handled business. I looked like a woman who survived. Diane saw that strength and called it clashing with the whimsy. What she really meant was that she couldn't control me, and therefore, I had to go. I spent the next 2 days in a fugue state. I didn't answer Caroline's texts, which ranged from "Are you okay?" to "Please just take the trip, it's to Bali," to "You're being selfish." I didn't answer my father's single, cowardly voicemail. "Alice, give it time. She's under a lot of stress." On the third day, the fog lifted. I woke up with a clarity that felt like ice water. I wasn't going to sit here and mope. I wasn't going to be the sad, rejected spinster sister crying into a pint of ice cream while they celebrated their ethereal youth. I walked to my laptop and opened it. I navigated to a travel site. I used or my highest-level executives. If they wanted me gone, I would be gone. But I wasn't going on Diane's guilt trip to Bali, likely in some budget package she got through a connection. I was going to do this my way. I booked 2 weeks in Patagonia, a remote, ultra-luxury eco-lodge accessible only by helicopter. No cell service, no Wi-Fi in the cabins, just glaciers, mountains, and silence. It cost an obscene amount of money I had been saving to buy Caroline a house for her wedding present. I stared at the confirmed screen and felt a dark, twisted satisfaction. The down payment for their starter home was now a helicopter ride to a glacier. That afternoon, I decided to go to the grocery store to stock up on supplies before I left. As I was pushing my cart down the aisle, my phone rang. It was Robert. I debated ignoring it, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hello, Robert." "Alice," he said. His voice was smooth, polished, and completely devoid of warmth. "I heard you didn't accept the gift from my mother. That was incredibly rude." "Hello to you too, Robert," I said, picking up a box of tea. I didn't realize refusing a bribe to stay away from my own sister's wedding was considered rude. "It wasn't a bribe, it was a kindness," he scoffed. "Look, we just want to make sure you aren't going to try anything. My mother is worried you're going to show up at the venue and cause a distraction. We have security, Alice. I just wanted to let you know. Don't embarrass yourself." I stopped in the middle of the cereal aisle. A laugh bubbled up in my throat, harsh and jagged. "Security? You hired security to keep the bride's sister out." "We hired security to protect the event," he corrected. "And frankly, considering how emotional you're being, it seems we made the right call. We don't need your energy there. We have everything under control. My mother has planned this down to the minute. We don't need your logistics. We have vision." "Vision," I repeated. "Right." "So just stay away," Robert said. "We're all happier this way." He hung up. I stood there, staring at a box of cornflakes. He thought I was the threat. He thought I was the one who would ruin the day. He had no idea. I knew the venue they had chosen, the Chateau du Lac. I had managed a tech summit there 3 years ago. It was beautiful, stunningly photogenic, and notoriously difficult to work with. They had strict load-in times, a finicky power grid that couldn't handle high-voltage lighting rigs without a backup generator, and a clause in their contract about noise ordinances that was draconian. Diane had vision. She had aesthetic. But as I tossed the tea into my cart, I remembered the one conversation I'd tried to have with her about the vendor contracts months ago, which she had waved off with a manicured hand. They had security to keep me out. They had a vision for Vogue. But they had forgotten one crucial thing. Without me, they didn't have a safety net. To understand why this hurt so much, you have to understand the history. I wasn't just a big sister. I was the parent. Our mother died when I was 16 and Caroline was 8. Roman, our father, fell apart. He retreated into his armchair and his grief, leaving a teenager to figure out how to cook, how to pay bills, and how to raise a child. I missed my own prom to take care of Caroline when she had the chickenpox. I chose a college close to home so I could drive back on weekends to do their laundry and grocery shopping. I chose a high-stress, high-paying career specifically so Caroline wouldn't have to worry about student loans. I paid for her degree in art history. I paid for the gap year she wanted in Italy. I built the very foundation she was standing on, and now she was using it to look down on me. And then there was Diane. I had met Diane 6 months ago, shortly after Robert proposed. It was at an engagement dinner I had organized and paid for. We were at a steakhouse in the city. Diane had swept in, wearing a fur coat despite it being early September, and immediately demanded to change tables because the lighting was unflattering. She was a woman in her late 50s who looked a very expensive 40. Her face was tight, her hair was a helmet of blonde highlights, and her eyes were like shark glass. She was a wealthy real estate developer, the kind of person who believed rules were for poor people. "So, Alice," she had said that night, swirling her wine, "Robert tells me you work in event planning, like birthday parties." "Crisis management for corporate events," I corrected politely. "Large-scale logistics, trade shows, mergers, global summits." She hummed, looking bored. "Sounds stressful. Very blue-collar in a way, dealing with the mechanics of things." "It pays well," I said, taking a sip of water. "I'm sure it does," she smiled, a thin, predatory thing. "Robert, of course, is an architect. He builds skylines. He creates art." Robert, who W. As 25 and worked as a junior associate, mostly drafting bathroom layouts, nodded sagely. "Mother thinks I have a real eye for structural flow." "We are just so happy Caroline is joining the family," Diane continued, reaching over to pat Caroline's hand. Caroline beamed, desperate for the affection she never really got from our dad. "She's so moldable, so fresh. We're going to polish her up, aren't we, darling? Get her out of those department store clothes." I had stiffened. "Caroline looks beautiful." "She looks sweet," Diane corrected. "But the Hartwell family has a standard. We have a brand. And frankly, Alice, looking at you, well, I can see why Caroline needs a little guidance. You're very practical, sturdy." Sturdy? It was an insult wrapped in a descriptor. From that moment on, Diane had been chipping away at me. She made comments about my weight. I was a size 8, she was a size 0. She made comments about my single status. She made comments about my loud voice. And slowly, systematically, she turned Caroline against me. She bought Caroline's loyalty with designer bags and promises of a high society life, and in exchange, she demanded Caroline shed her embarrassing past. Meaning me. The night before I left for Patagonia, I sat in my apartment, packing my hiking boots. I looked at the pile of wedding binders I had created before I was fired. Vendor contacts, backup plans, weather contingencies, power grid schematics for the chateau. I picked up the binder. It was heavy. It contained the solution to every problem they were about to face. I thought about Robert's voice on the phone. "We have vision. We don't need your logistics." I thought about Caroline saying, "I didn't fit the aesthetic." I walked over to the recycling bin. I hovered the binder over the edge. "No," I whispered to myself. I didn't throw it away. That would be too easy. Instead, I placed it prominently on my coffee table. If they wanted it, they would have to come here, break into my apartment, and find it. But they wouldn't, because they were arrogant. They thought the world ran on aesthetics. They were about to learn that the world actually runs on logistics, contracts, and fine print. I zipped up my suitcase. My flight left at 6:00 a.m. By the time the wedding rehearsal started, I would be on a helicopter over a glacier, thousands of miles away from the Chateau du Lac and its notoriously unstable power grid. I checked my phone one last time. A text from Roman, "Just apologize to Diane, Alice, please." I powered the phone down. I didn't just put it to sleep. I held the button until the screen went black. I left it on the kitchen counter. I wasn't even taking it with me. I stared at the phone on the kitchen counter. It sat there, a black rectangle of potential misery. Leaving it behind was the ultimate statement, a physical severing of the tie. But then, the crisis manager part of my brain, the part that had kept CEOs from driving stocks into the ground and had ensured the safety of thousands of attendees, kicked in. You never go into the wilderness without a lifeline. If I broke my leg on a glacier, my pride wouldn't be much use as a splint. I groaned, a sound of pure frustration, and snatched the phone up. I shoved it deep into the zippered lining of my carry-on bag. For emergencies only, I whispered to the empty apartment. Medical emergencies, not emotional ones. The journey to Patagonia was a physical decompression. It took 3 flights, a 4-hour bus ride on roads that were more gravel than asphalt, and finally, a helicopter transfer that made the Manhattan skyline look like a toy set. When the helicopter banked over the tour's Del Pane, revealing the jagged granite peaks stabbing into a sky of impossible blue, I felt the tight knot in my chest. The one Diane had tied there 6 months ago begin to loosen. The Ecolodge was a masterpiece of minimalist architecture, wood and glass perched on the edge of a fjord. It was silent. No traffic, no wedding playlists, no Diane talking about optics. I checked in, unpacked my hiking gear, and ordered a bottle of Malbec. It was only when I sat on my private deck, wrapped in a wool blanket, staring at a glacier that was 10,000 years old, that I allowed myself to think about the timeline. It was Thursday. Back home, it was the day before the rehearsal dinner. Right now, the load-in at the Chateau du Lac would be happening. The florists would be arriving. The lighting crews would be setting up the rigs. A dark curiosity pricked at me. I shouldn't look. I really shouldn't. But I was a professional, and professionals verify. I pulled my laptop out of my bag. The lodge had satellite internet, slow, spotty, and expensive, but it worked. I didn't check my personal email. I logged into my work server. Technically, I had used my corporate clout to secure the friends and family, hold on the Chateau du Lac dates 2 years ago, long before Robert proposed. Jew. Sent in case Caroline ever needed it. My work email was still the primary contact for the venue's internal system, even though I had forwarded all the planning correspondence to Diane's personal assistant months ago. I opened the inbox. There were 17 automated notifications from the Chateau's vendor portal. Subject, urgent, insurance liability lapse tentative hold subject. Catering, final headcount verification needed overdue subject. Electrical, generator requirement not met. I clicked on the electrical one. My heart did a slow, cold flip. Dear client, as per the contract signed on Feb 12th, the ethereal glow lighting package you have requested exceeds the Chateau's 200 amp service. You are required to rent an external Whisperwatt generator and a distro box by 5:00 p.m. on Wednesday. We have not received the confirmation of this rental. Without it, we cannot plug in the rig. Please advise. Wednesday, that was yesterday. I leaned back in my chair, the cold wind biting at my cheeks. Diane had fired me. She had told me my logistics were boring. She had told me she had vision. Vision doesn't generate electricity. I scrolled down. I found the catering notification. It was from Peer & Co., the high-end catering firm Diane had insisted on because they did the governor's ball. Payment failure. The credit card on file Amex ending in 4009 was declined for the final balance of $42,000. We have attempted to contact the planner, Diane Hartwell, 3 times. If payment is not wire transferred by Thursday noon, the kitchen staff will be released to other events. Thursday noon, that was 4 hours ago. I sat there, the wind howling softly around the cabin. I realized then that this wasn't just a wedding that was going to be a little disorganized. This was a train heading for a cliff, and the conductor was too busy looking in the mirror to see the tracks were missing. Diane hadn't just excluded me, she had excluded the only person who knew how to read a technical writer. She assumed that because she was rich, things just happened. She thought you could bully a circuit breaker. She thought you could intimidate a bank transfer. I closed the laptop. A normal sister would call. A normal sister would scream into the phone, pay the caterer, rent a generator. But I wasn't a normal sister anymore. I was the corporate sister. I was the one who didn't fit the aesthetic. I remembered Caroline's face when she handed me the envelope. It's about me, and if Diane says it's vital. Okay, I whispered to the glacier. Let's see how vital Diane is. I didn't send a warning. I didn't fix it. I sipped my wine, watched a condor circle the peaks, and waited for the inevitable explosion. I had the leverage, the knowledge of exactly why their world was about to go dark, but I wasn't going to use it to save them. I was going to use it to watch them burn. The explosion arrived at 3:00 a.m. my time, which was 2:00 a.m. New York time. My phone, which I had foolishly left on the bedside table after checking the weather, lit up the room like a strobe light. It vibrated so hard it nearly fell off the wood surface. I groaned, rolling over and squinting at the screen. 47 missed calls, 82 new messages. The breakdown was impressive. 15 calls from Caroline, 10 calls from Dad, 20 calls from Robert, 2 calls from Diane. And the texts, they were a scrolling wall of panic. Caroline 10:30 p.m. Alice picking up. Pick up, please. Caroline 11:15 p.m. The lights won't turn on. The guy says we don't have power. Do something. Robert 11:45 p.m. Alice, I know you know the venue manager. Call him, tell him to fix this. My mother is screaming at the staff. Dad 12:20 a.m. Alice, it's a disaster. Please call. And then, the pivot. The moment panic turned into accusation. Diane 1:00 a.m. Did you cancel the generator? The venue manager says the order was voided. If you sabotaged this wedding out of jealousy, I will sue you into the ground. Diane 1:05 a.m. You petty, miserable little girl. Fix this now or you are dead to this family. I sat up in bed, the duvet pooling around my waist. The audacity was breathtaking. Even in the middle of a catastrophe of her own making, Diane's instinct was to find a scapegoat, and I was the designated target. I didn't call. Calling would mean screaming, and I was done screaming. I opened my messaging app and composed a single response to the group chat Caroline had created months ago, the one they had removed me from, but which I could still message individually. I selected Diane, Robert, Caroline, and Dad. I attached the screenshot of the email from the chateau regarding the generator. The one dated 3 days ago, addressed to me, but clearly stating the requirement was unfulfilled. Me, I didn't cancel anything. I was uninvited, remember? I haven't spoken to a vendor in weeks. The email below was sent to my old work address. It says you never rented the generator. You can't plug a stadio. Lighting rig into a 19th century wall outlet, Diane. It's physics, not sabotage. I hit send. The dots bubbled immediately. Robert, then call them. Order one now. Me, I'm in Patagonia. I have no cell service to make calls. Besides, rental houses close at 5 p.m. It's 2 a.m. Caroline, Alice, please. The catering is gone too. They didn't show up for the welcome drinks. People are eating pretzels from the hotel minibar. Mom's friends are leaving. My heart tweaked for Caroline, just a little. But then I remembered ethereal youth. Me, why didn't Diane pay the final balance? I saw a notification about a declined card. Diane, my cards are limitless. It's a banking error. They are incompetent. You recommended this catering company, Alice. This is your fault for choosing scam artists. The gaslighting was so predictable, it was almost boring. Me, Peer & Co. isn't a scam. They require a wire transfer for amounts over 20K. It's in the contract. Page 4, Clause B, the contract you signed. The one you said you read better than I did because you have business acumen. I swung my legs out of bed and walked to the window. The moon was illuminating the fjord, turning the water into liquid silver. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. Back in New York, in a ballroom that probably cost more than my car, they were standing in the dark, eating pretzels. Robert, Alice, stop being a bitch and help us. You have connections. Call Pierre personally. Offer him double. I'll wire you the money right now. Caroline, Alice, I'm begging you. I'm in the bathroom crying. My makeup is ruined. Diane is throwing vases. Please. I looked at Caroline's text. I'm in the bathroom crying. I had spent my life keeping her out of that bathroom. I had fixed the broken toys, the failed tests, the broken hearts. And she had thanked me by telling me I wasn't good enough to be seen in her pictures. I typed slowly, my fingers cold against the glass screen. Me, I can't call Pierre. I'm on a satellite connection that only supports text. And even if I could, I wouldn't. You told me I was too managing. You told me my energy was wrong. You wanted to do this without me. So, do it. Use your vision. I turned off the notifications. I didn't turn off the phone. I needed it for the next part, but I silenced the buzzing. I poured myself a glass of water and stood by the window. The first confrontation was over. I had proven it wasn't sabotage, it was incompetence. But I knew Diane, she wouldn't stop. She would spin this. By morning, she would be telling the guests that I had hacked the bank accounts. She would lie to save face. And that was when I decided I needed more than just defense. I needed a prosecutor's evidence. The next morning, the sun rose over the Andes in a blaze of pink and gold. I sat with my coffee, my laptop open. The messages from the night before were still there, desperate and angry, but I ignored them. I was hunting. If Diane was broke, or at least cash poor enough that her card declined, that was news. Diane Hartwell brandished her wealth like a weapon. She was constantly talking about her properties in the Hamptons, her investments in tech, her liquid assets. But rich people don't miss catering payments. Disorganized people do, yes, but the notification hadn't said payment forgotten. It said declined. I was a crisis manager. My job was investigation. When a venue failed, I had to know why. When a sponsor pulled out, I dug until I found the skeletons. I started searching public records. It's amazing what you can find when you know where to look and you're willing to pay the fees for expedited court document retrieval. I searched Diane Hartwell in the New York State Civil Court database. Nothing. I searched Hartwell Development LLC, the company she claimed to run. Nothing. That was odd. A real estate mogul with no LLCs in her name. I tried her late husband's name, Gerald Hartwell, bingo. A probate document from 3 years ago. Estate of Gerald Hartwell versus creditors. I paid the $15 fee to download the PDF. I scrolled through the legalese. The estate was insolvent, heavily leveraged. The Hamptons house wasn't owned. It was in a trust controlled by a bank, currently in pre-foreclosure. The investments were gone, liquidated to pay off gambling debts Gerald had racked up before he died. Diane wasn't rich. She was living on the fumes of a dead man's credit line. She was broke. That's why she wanted the wedding in vogue. She wasn't doing it for Caroline. She was doing it to relaunch herself. She needed the publicity to snag a new husband or a new investor. She was using my sister's wedding as a marketing expense for a product that didn't exist. And that's why she cut me out, not because of my aesthetic, but because if I had seen the contracts, really seen the financials, I would have seen that the checks were bouncing. She needed me gone so she could hide the red ink. My phone buzzed, a text from my father. Dad, Alice, it's the morning of the wedding. We have no food, we have no lights. Diane is saying she's going to sue you for embezzlement. She's telling everyone you stole the wedding money. People are looking at us like we're criminals. Please, if you did this, just fix it. My blood ran cold. Embezzlement. She was framing me. She was going to use my corporate job and my jealousy to explain why there was no money. She was going to destroy my professional reputation to cover her bankruptcy. This wasn't just a family spat anymore. This was war. I took screenshots of the probate documents. I took screenshots of the foreclosure notice on the Hamptons house. I opened the group chat again. Me, Dad, I didn't steal a dime, but I know where the money went. Or rather, I know that there never was any money. Diane, shut you pee. Don't you dare, I will ruin you. Robert, Mom, what is she talking about? Me, Diane is broke, Robert. The estate has been insolvent for 3 years. The Hamptons house is in foreclosure. The credit card declined because it's maxed out. She's not waiting for a banking error. She's waiting for a miracle. I uploaded the PDF of the probate filing. I uploaded the foreclosure notice. Me, here is the court filing. Look at page 12. Assets liquidated. She's using Caroline's wedding to fake a lifestyle she can't afford anymore. She uninvited me because she knew I'd check the books. I watched the screen. Read by Caroline, read by Robert, read by Diane. For 5 minutes, there was nothing. No typing bubbles. No insults. Just the digital silence of a bomb going off in a crowded room. Then, a single text from Caroline. Caroline, is this true? Diane. Diane, it's a forgery, she faked it. Alice is a liar. Me, it's a public record, Caroline. You can look it up yourself on the NY Court's website. Case number 45992, search it on your phone right now. Another long pause. Robert, Mom, I'm searching it, it's there. The house is listed as pre-foreclosure. Caroline, you told me you bought the dress. You told me you paid the venue in full. Me, call the dress shop, Care. Ask them if the balance is paid. Do it now. I put the phone down on the wooden railing of the deck. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of the kill. I had just nuked my sister's wedding morning. I had just humiliated my sister's future mother-in-law. But they had come for my reputation. They had accused me of theft. I picked the phone up one last time. Caroline, the dress shop says they need $6,000 before I can pick it up. They say the check bounced on Tuesday. Caroline, Robert, she lied to us. She lied about everything. Caroline, Alice, are you there? What do? We have guests arriving in 4 hours. There is no food, there is no electricity, I have no dress. Please help me. I looked at the plea. It was the same as the first day. Please. But this time, she knew the truth. She knew who the villain was. The spell was broken. I typed my final message for the day. Me, I love you, Caroline, but I am 6,000 miles away. I can't write a check from a mountain. You have to handle this. You and Robert need to stand up. Tell the guests the truth. Cancel the party. Go to the courthouse. Do whatever you have to do. But do not let that woman control one more second of your life. I held the power button. The screen went black. I didn't turn it back on. I put on my hiking boots, grabbed my poles, and walked out the door toward the glacier. The air was crisp and clean. I took a deep breath. I was done fixing things. It was time for them to build something real from the rubble I had just exposed. I didn't turn my phone on for the rest of the trip. For 5 days, I hiked across ice fields that groaned and cracked like living things. I drank water straight from glacial streams. I sat in silence so profound it felt like a physical weight. Every step took me further away from the noise of aesthetics and optics, and closer to something I hadn't felt in years: peace. But eventually, the helicopter came back. The bus ride happened. The flights connected. When I landed at JFK, it was raining again. It felt fitting. I turned my phone on in the taxi queue. It took a solid 5 minutes to download everything. The sheer volume of data was staggering. Hundreds of missed calls, voicemails that had filled the inbox to capacity, texts that scrolled back for days. I didn't read them all. I didn't need to. I saw the headlines on my social media feed first. It turns out, you can't keep a disaster of that magnitude quiet. Not when you've invited influencers and promised a Vogue aesthetic. The videos were brutal. One TikTok, with 2 million views, showed guests standing in the dark at the Chateau du Lac, holding cell phone flashlights while eating what looked like pizza delivery. The caption read, "Wedding fail, rich people problems scam." And other video showed Diane, my nemesis, the woman of vision, screaming at a security guard who was trying to escort her off the property. She looked deranged. Her hair was frizzy, her face contorted in rage, screaming, "Do you know who I am?" The internet, in its infinite cruelty, had answered, "Yeah, a broke lady." But the most important post was from Caroline. It was a photo posted 3 days after the wedding date. It wasn't professional. It was a selfie taken in a mirror. She was wearing a simple white sundress, one I recognized from her college days, and Robert was standing next to her, wearing a plain button-down shirt. They looked exhausted. Their eyes were puffy. But they were smiling, and Robert was holding up a piece of paper. A marriage certificate. The caption was simple: "We got married at City Hall." No lights, no caterer, no mother-in-law, just us. "Sorry to everyone who traveled for the circus. We're starting over." I felt a lump in my throat. They had done it. They had actually done it. The taxi dropped me off at my apartment. I walked inside, the silence welcoming me back. My binder was still on the coffee table where I had left it. The emergency plan that was never used. I sat down and finally called my father. He picked up on the first ring. "Alice," his voice sounded 10 years older. "I'm back, Dad." "Oh, thank God," he breathed. "Alice, it was a nightmare, a living nightmare." "I saw the videos," I said calmly. "Where is Diane?" "Hospital," he said. "She had an episode. When the police came, Pierre, the caterer, called them for fraud. She collapsed. They say it's exhaustion, but well, she's under observation." "And Caroline?" "She's at Robert's apartment, or their apartment now. They moved out of the condo Diane was renting for them. Turns out she hadn't paid the rent on that either." "I'm coming over," I said, "not to fix it, just to see her." "Please," he said, "she really wants to see you." I didn't go to my dad's house. I went to the address Caroline texted me. It was a small, walk-up apartment in Queens, far from the luxury she had been promised, but it was real. When I knocked, Robert opened the door. He looked different. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a humble, shell-shocked weariness. "Alice," he said. He didn't block the door this time, he stepped aside. "Come in." Caroline was in the kitchen, unpacking a box of dishes. When she saw me, she dropped the plate she was holding. It shattered on the floor, but she didn't look down. She ran to me and buried her face in my shoulder. She smelled like cheap soap and tears. "I'm sorry," she sobbed into my coat. "I'm so sorry. You were right. You were right about everything." I held her. I didn't say, "I told you so." The shattered plate and the City Hall wedding were proof enough. "It's okay," I whispered. "I'm here." Robert stood awkwardly in the doorway. "My mother, she really believed her own lies," he said quietly. "She told me the money was coming. She told me she had investors. I should have checked. I should have listened to you." "Yes," I said, looking at him over Caroline's head. "You should have, but you didn't, so now you have to deal with the cleanup." "We are," he said. "I'm selling my car to pay back the guests for their travel. It won't cover everything, but it's a start." I nodded. That was a good answer. It was a logistic. "We cut her off," Caroline said, pulling back and wiping her eyes. "Diane, we told the hospital she's not allowed to contact us. Robert changed his number." "Good," I said. "And Alice?" Caroline looked at me, her eyes pleading. I know I said you didn't fit the aesthetic. But looking back at the photos of that night, the darkness, the chaos, the only thing that was ugly was us. The way we treated you." "It was pretty ugly," I agreed, "but you learned." The fallout took months to settle. Diane was eventually released from the hospital and immediately served with 3 lawsuits, one from the venue, one from the caterer, and one from the dress shop. Last I heard, she had moved to Florida to live with a distant cousin, claiming she was the victim of a corporate conspiracy led by her jealous family. She never admitted fault. Narcissists never do. Robert got a second job to pay off the debts. It was humbling for him, but it made him a better man. He stopped looking at buildings as art and started looking at them as structures that needed strong foundations, a lesson he learned the hard way. As for me, I didn't go back to fixing their lives. I kept my boundaries. I let them figure out their own insurance, their own rent, their own grocery bills. But a month after I got back, I did do one thing. I invited Caroline and Robert to dinner at my apartment. I cooked. It wasn't a fancy catered meal. It was lasagna. We sat in my living room, the binder finally gone from the coffee table. "I have a wedding present for you," I said, handing them. "An envelope." Caroline flinched, probably remembering the envelope Diane had given me. "Alice, you don't have to." "Open it." She opened it. Inside was a check. It wasn't the down payment on a house. I had spent a good chunk of that on my trip to Patagonia, and I didn't regret a single cent of it. But it was enough to clear the debt they owed the dress shop and the florist. "It's a clean slate," I said. "No debts. No Diane holding strings over you. You start from zero today." Caroline looked at the check, then at me. "Why, after everything?" "Because I'm your big sister," I said, "and because I'm a crisis manager, and the crisis is officially over." She cried again, but this time it was happy tears. We drank wine, cheap wine, not the vintage Diane would have ordered, and we laughed. We laughed about the pizza in the dark. We laughed about the TikTok videos. We laughed until our sides hurt. They had wanted a wedding that looked perfect for Vogue. They ended up with a disaster that broke the internet. But as I looked at my sister, leaning her head on her husband's shoulder, free from the weight of a lie she couldn't afford, I realized they had gotten something better. They had gotten the truth. And I had gotten my vacation.